What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Light of Darkness podcast. I am Derrick Garza, the host, and today I have a very special guest, a good friend of mine who I've known for quite some time, Mrs. Lauren Valdez.
So official.
So official. What's going on, Lauren? How you doing?
I'm good.
Thank you for coming on the podcast and being open to us diving into your life.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Are you?
As ready as I'm going to be.
All right. Well, I wanted to bring you on today, so we can talk about some deep issues today. But before we do that, as per usual, let's get a little of the background of Lauren Valdez.
Sounds good.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. Where should I start?
I don't know. You know what? There's an ongoing joke right now of like having birth stories. So tell me about how you were conceived.
Oh God. I don't know, and maybe that's for the best.
No, you should ask your parents.
I don't know about that.
Should ask your parents. Just tell me about your where you were born, where you grew up. A little bit about that kind of has shaped Lauren, the Lauren we know and love today.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Houston, but raised in the Bronx in New York.
How did that come about? Were your parents just like, we're going to make this trek to the East Coast?
Well, so we actually moved up north because my dad was an opera singer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, like paid, legitimate.
Yep, that's
what very
he
interesting.
did. Yeah, he quit a while back, but he started singing again recently. So cool.
We can just talk about that for a second, if you don't mind. What got him into that? I know it's not about him, but that's pretty interesting. He's an opera singer. How did he discover that he could sing fucking opera music?
So I think it's kind of like the typical story. He joined choir in high school because of a girl. And started singing. The coach kind of noticed that he had a thing, and he just became.
Is your dad Pavarotti?
I mean, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of could pass for that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got the beard and the dark hair. And,
Interesting.
And he's a tenor. Yeah, he kind of could be.
Okay, so what was that like? You guys moved to New York because of this career choice?
Yep. Yeah.
So he was like actually paid.
Yeah.
He was like
I mean, he worked like side gigs to make ends meet, but yeah, he did that. I grew up going to the opera with him. My mom's a music teacher, so
Interesting.
Yeah, so I grew up, singing with them, and grew up going to see him sing all the time.
Did you pick up any of the musical talent?
I do sing, but it's
Really?
been a very long time since I've sang.
You want to sing the Light of Darkness theme song?
Not today.
You just got to sound like a little kid. The Light of Darkness.
Yeah.
If you want, it's your thing.
No. But I grew up seeing him sing with him a few times, and it was fun.
Interesting. Okay, so you guys moved over to the East Coast, and what was that like growing up? It's quite different from living in the South. And then how did you guys make your trek back down?
Yeah. Well, so I grew up in a part of the Bronx that's like considered the good part of the Bronx, but that's all kind of relative.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm not really familiar with I guess the areas in New York. I've never been. Everybody tells me I want to go, but I'm unsure if I actually want to go. It looks big. It looks overwhelming to me.
No, you for sure want to go. I think everybody needs to go to New York at least once in their life, just to say that they've experienced it. Even if you hate it.
Well, what is the experience? I mean,
well, like Manhattan is going to be like what everyone typically thinks of as New York.
Okay.
The Bronx is a little more like neighborhoody. But it's got its own.
Is that what you're saying to me right now?
No, not
because
like,
you can just say it.
I mean,
there's
parts, there's areas that are a little more rough for sure. But
where can I meet the Wu-Tang Clan? Is what I want to know.
I wish I could tell you. I wish I knew. No, I mean, I really loved getting to grow up there. I think it really shaped me as a person. And the last 2 years that we were up there, so the middle school that I was zoned to go to was it had a notoriously bad
reputation.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you if you get.
Thank you.
Wordsmith.
Yeah.
Not to be cocky or anything.
Yeah, it was not the best. So I ended up getting a scholarship to go to a private school in Manhattan, and hated it.
You hated the school?
Yeah, it was rough.
Wait, what did you sing? Right? Hey, singer girl, get out of here.
It wasn't anything like that. No, but it was just I I came from the Bronx, and all of these people came from Manhattan, and
so there's a divide.
Yeah. I just felt very different from everyone. But looking back on it, I'm really grateful that I had that experience because it made me really adaptable. I think that's what's made me pretty good at my career too. I do hair.
You need a haircut.
Yeah.
It's that cut and color.
Yeah.
Holler.
Yeah, and I think I think it made me really adaptable to different people and different walks of life. So looking back on it, I'm really grateful that I got that experience. But at the time, it sucked.
Yeah, well, that happens.
Yeah.
The joys of not being able to choose your destiny as a child.
Yeah.
So you were there for how long? How long did you?
So we moved up there when I was 6. I had just turned 6, and we moved back when I was 13. I was going into 8th grade, and we moved to.
Ooh, look at that! It is a childhood story.
Yeah, when we moved to the suburbs of Dallas, which was also not my favorite.
All right. Well, so in contrast, being a teenager, like living in a big city, it's very different. To the other big city that you moved to. And so what were some differences coming from like your teenage mind?
Well, definitely like popular culture was very different. Yeah. Like, so.
No more Timberlands?
Yeah. No, like straight up. That's what it was.
Was that really?
I remember I wore these Nikes to school that like everyone up north was like, those are so awesome. Yeah. One of my good friends, in 8th grade in Dallas, she came up to me one day and very kindly was like, just so you know, people are talking about your shoes.
Damn, that's a nice way to put it.
I know. I was really grateful that she decided to let me in on that. But
friends with finesse.
Yeah, but it was just little things like that. And just what was cool in the Bronx was not necessarily cool in McKinney, Texas. So
you were living there for a minute, and then you at some point met your future husband, who's married. She's married, fellas. Don't. You met your future husband, and you guys were like high school sweethearts, correct?
Kind of, sort of. So that's kind of a funny story too.
Dirt, girl.
No, it's kind of I kind of like telling the story. It's cute. So we met in, let me take it back a bit. So we met because I was dating a friend of his on the baseball team, and he apparently, I didn't know this, but like every couple of months would go up to this friend and he'd be like, "Oh, you guys still dating?"
Damn, look at this laying in the cut, just waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, vulture.
We ended up breaking up. Started dating this other guy, but my
dad. You didn't go right into the husband. You went to
because I didn't really know him. I just kind of met him in passing. But we ended up having music theory class together. My 11th grade year, his senior year, and he always made it a point to sit next to me. And I don't know. He might not like it if I tell the story.
It's up to you.
He was just very upfront. There was a picture of this previous boyfriend and I. It was like, I think it was a picture from prom. And he came up to me one day and he was like, "You guys aren't going to last."
Damn.
Yeah, he was
predicting the future.
I mean, he was not wrong.
Nostradamus.
He was not wrong. So, so I knew kind of at that point that he definitely liked me, but I was very loyal. I was dating this other guy, so too bad, so
Putting
sad.
That out there, yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up transferring schools so that I could graduate a year early, and just thought, oh, well, I'll never see Micah again. And it just so happened that a couple months later, my mom was getting baptized, and his mom...
But your mom was getting baptized?
My mom was getting baptized at our church.
She's a grown woman.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I know. She never went to church as a kid.
Just thinking about dipping the head. And
not
stuff,
only... No, like, they're
yeah, I know.
It's
a little different.
But she was getting baptized. So was Micah's mom at the same church.
This is very random.
Very random.
It's very serendipitous.
Hadn't seen him for a few months at that point. And so I walk in. I had broken up with this previous guy at that point, and I see Mike, and I was like, "This is my last chance." Like,
wait, so you had already started get interested or be interested?
I had been interested.
Okay.
Yeah, from years ago, but it had just never. It just never.
Playing them games.
It had just never happened. So so I saw him, and I was like, "This is my last chance." And he still kind of makes fun of me because I hit on him in church, but.
Worst things have happened in churches.
I mean, I'm sure.
Just to let you know, that sounds pretty innocent.
Yeah.
Considering what we've read about in the news that happened in churches.
So we started dating like that week. We did the whole like text on the phone till 3 a.m. thing, and yeah, so it was like the last 2 weeks of high school that we were together.
Okay, well that sounds like a good story. It's a very cute story. That's a good background story to get us started.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So you were kind of going back just a little bit. You've experienced a bigger city, and in New York, what does the homeless population look like in contrast to Dallas, or in contrast now to we live in Austin? And I bring this up because we're going to segue into something, but definitely want to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think really what I've noticed the differences is not so much in the people who are homeless, it's in how they're treated by people who are not homeless. So in New York, it's just so commonplace that, you kind of, I think New Yorkers kind of get a bad rap because people are always like, oh, they're not friendly. But that's not really what it is. It's that, you've got to get from point A to point B. You're getting to work every day. It's a hustle.
So
There's
it's the
so many
biggest city,
people. Yeah,
correct?
You can't just stop and say hi to everyone that you don't know.
It's the biggest city in America.
I mean, I would have to guess so. Yeah.
I think it's per cap, like for where it is. I think it's the biggest. I could be wrong. It's either that or Los Angeles.
Yeah, for a small amount of land, for sure. So yeah, you just can't really stop and like say hi to everyone. So most of what it is people just kind of putting their blinders on and walking, getting to where they need to be. So, people don't really stop to say hi to homeless people. But I mean, I have memories of when I was a kid. Sometimes my dad would like give me some spare change and be like, oh, go
run along.
Yeah.
Go play.
Give it to go give it to the guy sitting on the corner, So I think that kind of instilled in me as a young kid to like care about people who are less fortunate. So I'm really grateful to that. And like, even now, like, anytime I drive past somebody who's homeless, I always wonder like, man, how did they end up in that situation? Like anybody can end up there.
Sure. I think a really common misconception is that people, and not everybody thinks this, but some people definitely think this is it. If you're homeless, it's almost like you just don't want to work, or you can't find a job. It's like go find a job is very easily. And that is true in some aspects. Yeah. But also I think what's unaccounted for is the percentage of those homeless people that have mental illness. Yeah. And so, if you are mentally unstable, it's hard to just function in day-to-day life, much less go find a job.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of it is. Either mental illness or, drug addiction. And a lot of times those two kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. Drug addiction is used as a coping mechanism for the mental illness. It just makes
things, perpetuates things, makes things snowball.
Yeah, definitely doesn't help the situation.
Yeah, definitely.
But in the moment, it does, Sure. So I have a lot of, empathy that goes out to people in those situations.
The in kind of in the same vein, what is we looked at the perceptions of people that are not homeless. What is the actual approach, I suppose, of homeless people in a bigger city as to like say Austin? Like there's definitely it's not super friendly on the side of Austin. So how is that in comparison to like New York?
Well, I was a kid in New York, so
have you visited since?
Only once.
Damn.
Yeah,
have not. Your roots, girl.
It feels that way sometimes.
You gotta give
that. But I don't have any family up there, so I don't have the chance to go up there very often. But so I was a kid, so my perspective was a little bit limited. I'm sure that I would have more insight into how things are up there now if I went back up there. But at least in Austin, kind of what I've noticed, I think I heard recently that they're going to be moving the homeless shelter further east.
So for those that don't know, the homeless shelter is in a very odd spot because it's a very hot property, and it happens to intersect like a club district. So the world famous 6th Street is literally 1 block away. Like you could walk, it would take you probably to get to 6th Street to 7th, from 6th to 7th, which is where you're going to find the homeless shelter. You're going to take, it's going to be a 30-second walk. Yeah. And depending on where you are. But so, when you have these college kids, because, essentially we're living in a college town, intersecting and interacting with homeless people who are sometimes aggressive. So you get people that are homeless that don't have a lot to lose, and you have, young kids who are, just binge drinking essentially. A lot of things happen.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen that don't go reported all the time, but you see them.
And in that respect, I definitely understand some of the motivation to move the shelter. I don't know. I think it's a really complicated situation. I'm going to try to be an open book here. So I was assaulted a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we were actually this is what we're getting into.
Okay.
So we can go right into that.
Yeah, I was assaulted on a jogging trail a couple of years ago by a man who, they never caught him. I have a feeling he was probably homeless, but I don't know for sure. And luckily he didn't do me any major harm.
Can we talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah.
So you're going out, basically just go for a run?
Yeah, so there was...
time of day?
I had gotten off of work early, so I think it was around like 5 o'clock. It was still broad daylight.
Okay.
There were other people on the trail, but it was a mother and her child. And
Wait, so there was witnesses to this?
They didn't see, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, I screamed, so there was no way that she didn't hear me. But also at the same time, like, I don't blame her. If she did hear me, I don't know. If I had my 2-year-old with me, I don't know that I would have tried to intervene either.
Right. What could you do?
Exactly. So I don't blame her for not stopping to check it out. But it was broad daylight, and I was going around for my second lap. So there was a wooded area on the trail, and I just kind of turned into that wooded area, and he was right there, and I had my headphones in. And
so did you see him?
It was face to face
at
that point. Like right when I turned the corner, he was standing right in the middle of the trail. And he said something to the effect of, "Can I ask you something?" And I knew right then, like, this is not good. And
just
so,
instinctually, or just did he have a demeanor about him?
Not at all. He was, if anything, he looked like he was going to just stop to ask me something, but I could tell that was not going to be it.
Okay.
And this was before I started doing jiu-jitsu, so I didn't have any sort of like self-defense skills at all. And so I kind of stopped and started to back up, and I turned my back to him because I was going to try to run away. And he just bear hugged me from the back and dragged me off into the woods. And
how quick did that happen?
It was all very quick, super quick. I mean, seconds. But he dragged me off far enough into the woods to where if somebody had, run past us on the trail, they probably wouldn't have seen us. Mm-hmm. So, he dragged me off into the woods. I'm kind of struggling, and he like body slams me down to the ground. And he slammed me pretty hard. Like I still have like back troubles because of it. And,
did you land on just
it was
the
just
ground,
on the ground, yeah, just hard ground. And he was on top of me, and I was doing everything that I could to get out from underneath him. And finally, after struggling for probably what was less than a minute, mm-hmm. he I think he just got tired of me like fighting back, so he started to choke me, and he just like put his hand over my neck and made it so that I couldn't breathe. So at that point I was like, okay, I'm clearly not winning this fight, mm-hmm. so I'm gonna stop. And I just remember at the time, he kept repeating over and over again, like, if you scream again, if you keep fighting back, I'm going to kill you. I'll kill everyone on this trail.
Did you at some point think that was
I knew it was possible because he was a big dude.
Yeah.
He was very tall, much bigger than me. Like, I knew he had the power to do whatever he wanted. Mm. And so after he choked me at that point, I was like, okay, I've got to stop fighting back. The only other option at this point is for me to be like submissive, and whatever he's going to do, he's going to do. And
that's the trade-off.
Yeah.
In your head.
Yeah. That was the only option at that point. And so at that point he let go of the choke, and he just started telling me, he was like, there's this guy, you can't trust him, you can't trust anybody. Just talking randomly? Crazy.
Just randomly.
Yeah, this guy did not know me. Like, I've gone over it so many times in my head. Like, there's no way. He did not know me. There's nobody in my life that I think I can't trust. Like, He was just crazy. He was not of sound mind. And so after he told me this whole thing, you can't trust anybody,
So he's holding you.
Yeah.
Is
he's
he
on top
at the
of
time,
me.
or
he was like, he was in mount.
Okay. Mounted, sitting on top of you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he, said what he needed to say, and then he let me sit up. And I'm like, it's kind of twisted, but at the time, I'm just like thanking him, like, thank you. Thanks for letting me sit up.
It could have been worse.
Yeah.
It could have been.
And this was, keep in mind, this was less than a mile from my apartment. Like, as the whole assault was going down, I could see where I lived. It was like so frustrating because I'm like, I'm just right there. Yeah. Like, Mike is at home. Like, it's so close. And at that point, I was like, he's like, this is it. All right.
Did you think you were going to die?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I pretty much, I thought that he was going to like rape and kill me at that point. I was like, all right, this is how it goes.
I like that you just said that with a smile.
I know. Well, because I don't want to, like, I realize it's a really dark subject, but it,
that's where we're going today. We're going to the dark. So if you guys can't tune in for a fucking humorous podcast,
some heavy
turn it off now.
Down.
It's not worth it.
But, at the same time, like, I recognize that, like, dark situations, they will shape me as a person, and I think that some good can come of it.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's all good, then it's just like it's all good.
Exactly.
There's nothing to really. You have to check in.
Yeah.
Because it's just like status quo, and
exactly.
that's not. I don't wish for bad shit.
Exactly.
But I think sometimes when bad things happen and when things that are unexpected happen, it's an opportunity. And I know this sounds really fucking hippity-dippity, but it is an opportunity to kind of like try to see it from a different perspective. And that's not to minimize any victim or anybody that's been through anything heavy or dark. But, once it's happened, you can't change that.
Yeah.
And so you have to find a way.
Exactly. The only thing that you can do is try to take something positive from it. So, I've had this experience, but it doesn't have to define me.
Absolutely.
I don't have to be a victim just because something like this happened to me. It just shapes me as a person, and yeah.
And just a little. Just a reminder, just a friendly reminder.
Talk quietly too.
So he lets you up, and you're thanking him.
Yeah, and he starts to brush all of the leaves out of my hair.
Oh, he's like now trying to groom you.
Cleaning me up, dusting off my shoulders from all the dirt that had gotten on me. And he starts picking up all the stuff that had fallen from his backpack. And it wasn't like a weapon or anything, but he had like a butter knife.
Whoa.
It could have been used.
Jam a butter knife into somebody's neck. That's a weapon.
It could have been used as a weapon, but he didn't use any weapons or anything like that. So he starts picking up all the stuff, putting it back into his backpack and cleaning me up. And he says, count down from 99 to 0. And if you get up before then, I'll kill you and I'll kill everyone on the trail. He reminds me one more time. And then he gets up and starts to walk away. And I count down to 0.
You actually did it.
I did, because I was not going to take any chances.
I see this tactic in movies, and I'm like, dude, I would count down to like 10, and then I'm out.
I know. Well, but
then I've never been in this situation before, so.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. So here's a positive that I take from this situation. Until that point would have kind of questioned, would I fight back? Would I, have the strength to try to defend myself? And I did, even though I didn't know how to defend myself. I did everything in my power to, save my life.
Right.
So, that's kind of what I take from that, is that like I am a fighter, and that feels good.
Did it give you a different perspective on, because I'm sure, you being a woman, and women, often can share experiences with each other. I'm not sure if you've ever heard or any of your friends or any whatever been attacked, but did that give you a different perspective on, like, hey man, anybody can be a victim? I mean, did that kind of, I don't know if that's been something that's been discussed or whatnot, but
I don't know of any other women that have been attacked, but I do know that like the statistics are pretty high.
Right.
I forget exactly what it is, but a lot of women.
Yeah, in the years that I've been teaching self-defense or whatever, I've definitely ran into women who have, and it just comes out in the oddest way, like I've given self-defense seminars for women, rape prevention specifically. And, like say for instance, we're doing techniques, and one of them was like putting the hand on the throat, pushing them against the wall, and and I'm used to people like just doing the technique, just doing the thing, and they're like, oh, it works, that.
Yeah.
It was one specific instance where I grabbed a lady, and I'm not going super hard, but you have to kind of simulate a little bit of effort. I put my hand on the neck, I pushed her against the wall, and she froze and literally just started sobbing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, what did I do?
Yeah.
What did I do? And so, the main instructor took her to the side and, had come out that she had been assaulted before, pretty much in a similar manner, maybe like laying down, like as you were saying.
Yeah.
But you just never know. Like I know people that are very, very close to me that I would have never known because, you see the outs of a person and it looks normal.
Yeah.
Normal.
Yeah.
And, they've, as I've gotten older, things happened when I was a kid and they've told me and I'm like, whoa, this person plays this role in my life.
Yeah.
And now also on top of that, a sexual assault victim.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say that most people don't know this about me. It's not something that I like wear on my shoulder. Right. It's something that I do think has, affected me in day-to-day life, since then, especially for the first couple of months afterwards.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that. Well, before we get into the first couple months, if you wouldn't mind too much, tell me about how that walk home went, how it went when you got home, what happened.
Yeah, so I picked myself back up and went right back onto the trail, and there happened to be a guy who had been jogging on the trail, and he was right there, and I was, kind of sob talking to him, just trying to tell him what happened. And he was like, oh yeah, I just saw that guy walk out. And he was like, do you want me to call the police? And this is my only regret, is that I told him not to call the police. I wanted his phone to call Micah. And I couldn't, in the moment, I couldn't even think of his number. Like, my mind was so scattered that I was like, okay, I need for you, the stranger.
You didn't have your phone with you?
No. I'm trying to remember. I was listening to music, so I must have, but I think my phone had fallen on the ground, like my headphones. It was all kind of scattered on the ground, and I wasn't thinking straight at that point. And so I told this guy, I just need you to walk me. My apartments are right there. Just walk with me, like, in case this guy comes back. Yeah. And so we're walking, he kind of is asking me what happened. I'm telling him. And then we
never met this guy before.
Never. Yeah. But yeah, he walked with me and, got me up to the gate, and he was like, okay, are you good from here? Do you want me to walk you to your house? I was like, no, thank you so much. And we went on our separate ways. And, I walked back to the apartment. Some people saw me walking, and at that point I'm just like bawling. They're asking me if I'm okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Even though I clearly was not. Yeah. I get back to the apartment, and Micah, he had been working the night shift, so he was asleep, and I walk into the house, and he was awake because I had been gone for way longer than I normally would be. And he sees me, and he knew something terrible had happened, so he starts crying. I'm hugging him, and then I finally, the first thing that I told him was, I'm okay, because I didn't want him to see me and think, like, the worst. So yeah, I tell him what happened. And then we drive to the hospital just to make sure, because he had slammed me down pretty hard. Yeah. So.
Did you think that you broke anything, or?
Well, my first thought was that he had broken my back, which clearly could not have happened because I was walking. But
could be like slightly broken.
I mean, it really hurt. But no, we go to the hospital and everything was fine. And yeah, there's some really cute pictures of me laying on the hospital bed with like one of those like neck supporters on, and I'm like flipping off the camera because that's just who I am. Yeah. I had to make light of the moment.
Yeah. And so that kind of now we can go back to the statement that you made about the next few months were kind of weird, or kind of, what were they for you?
Yeah. So anytime, day or night, that I would be out by myself, I constantly have to like look behind my back. Like, it makes me very anxious to be out by myself, and it's gotten better, and this would have been about 4 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been a while, and I've gotten to the point, especially now having some experience like self-defense wise.
Sure.
I feel like if something were to happen, I would be a lot better prepared.
Right.
So that gives me more confidence for sure. And for any woman who's ever experienced any kind of assault, or even if you haven't, I would highly recommend some sort of self-defense just for the confidence, just to know that like you can fight back and
Definitely.
that you wouldn't feel lost in that situation.
I think even if women chose just to do these classes, and you never, like, let's say it's somebody who's not going to fight, it would probably just give them a little bit of a better situational awareness.
Yeah.
Because I see it quite a bit, and it's not just women, just people in general. They bury their heads in their phones and they just walk.
No, if I'm walking up from my car to my front door, I have my keys ready. So that I don't have to fumble through my keys to find, the door key. Like, I'm always prepared and the least distracted that I can be whenever I'm out.
I mean, random acts of violence can and do happen, and not everything is preventable, but definitely, I think just by having the assertiveness of, carrying yourself with confidence, not appearing meek or weak, if you will, can deter some people from, like I said, not everybody. There's still, like I said, mental illness and doesn't always register. But, just having that confidence can really kind of sway you away from that potential hazard.
Yeah, definitely.
So that brings you up to starting a martial art. Okay. And so I know the story. Whatever. How did that, was that a big factor in you wanting to learn martial arts?
So I actually didn't start training for, it was a little under a year after that. And I actually only started training because my husband, Micah, had always wanted to train. And up until that point, we just didn't have the time or the money to make it happen. But once we were able to, that was when I found the gym and went with him. And I had always been kind of physically active, just like going to the gym, just kind of whatever. And when we found Eastside Austin Elite, I was like, okay, I'll go with him. It'll be fun. I'll learn some self-defense. Yeah. Like, it'll be a good workout. And then after the first class, I was hooked. I loved it.
Was there any point, at any point during the journey of learning martial arts, did you ever have any flashbacks or anything that kind of put you in that same, the same line?
I wouldn't say a flashback like I'm back in it, but memories definitely, like the first week or two. It didn't last for very long, but the first really couple of months that you're training, it's pretty intense, especially if you're a smaller person, because you're just getting beat up all the time. All the time. You kind of feel like you're drowning. And so it definitely was a familiar feeling in a negative way.
In a negative way?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there were definitely moments where I was like, I've been here before.
Interesting.
But it was kind of empowering to, feel that same feeling and be in that same kind of situation, but knowing that I wasn't in any danger.
Yeah.
And knowing that, okay, I'm here and I can actually learn how to fight out of this situation instead of only having, a negative connotation of being in that same position.
Right. So, that goes on for a while. You're learning. How is it as a woman? And I do have to bring this like gender thing up, but how is it as a woman to be now part of something that's been, traditionally male dominated, and, there's a lot of women making strides in it, but from your experience, did you have any obstacles or anything that kind of stopped you or put something in the way that like, maybe that is an obstacle?
Yeah. I would say, probably the biggest thing for me is that I put a lot of pressure on myself to like represent women well, which I realize is a bit grandiose. But I would never want for a guy not to want to roll with me because he sees me and he thinks like, oh, she's little, she's weak. this isn't going to help me at all to roll with her. Like, I want to prove that women can be tough. You know, my size might hold me back, but it has nothing to do, my size and my strength. And yes, strength, I'm not going to be as strong because I am a woman. But, you know, there's small guys too. There's
very small guys. You know? They get beat up.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I feel for them too, because, you know, it's
I don't. I beat them up.
Well, on the flip side though, like, they're kind of expected to be tough, you know, where at least for women, I guess we're not expected. And at least I can like prove people wrong and like show them that, you know, we are tougher than people may think, that, you know, it's just our size that kind of holds us back. Like, that's really the obstacle for me, is that, you know, because I'm smaller than a lot of the people that I'm wrestling with, it's much easier for me to get injured.
Right.
So that's kind of tricky. Like, I have to be really aware, and I have to kind of know my limits, which I'm not so great at. I tend to kind of push past my limits, which isn't always beneficial.
Not always, but it's not always bad to to go a little extra.
True. And I do think that, you know, martial arts has kind of, you know, instilled that in me, that, you know, pushing just past is a good thing. Right. And it's awesome. You know, that's how you can really make strides. But at the same time, like, for me and the way that my mind works, I have to be like extra aware of my limits, because I'm not always so great at knowing when to stop.
I think that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of on the other side of that story, or on the other side of that question, finding the acceptance. Now, you know, it's more mainstream. I mean, essentially there's a fight tonight, you know, like a UFC fight, and women are, you know, co-headlining. And this is a giant thing. But the acceptance that you've tried to have is, you know, for the hard work, you know, putting the commitment in. What do you say about the idea of sex still being kind of one of the things that is very marketed in women trying to do this?
You know, it's maybe not my favorite thing.
It's not your favorite thing?
No.
I know you're always like, do you, boo?
Yeah. Yes.
It's kind of like
I do tend to say that. Yeah, it's maybe not my favorite thing.
Is it because it's just like from a moral standpoint, or
no,
just not the way that you would approach it?
No, not at all from a moral standpoint. You know, I think it's more so just that's what is being used to draw people in to watch women fight, whereas they don't have to do that for men, you know. Right. It's just like, and this is such a like petty thing, but there's only female like ring girls. So, like, why aren't there male ring guys for women?
That's a good question.
You know?
That's a good question.
Like, it's just the little things like that I kind of, like, shake my head to.
Well, I mean, what could you do to make it the same? If you wanted to sell sexuality for men.
Yeah. I mean, you can.
You could.
Yeah.
Make a fight in cock socks. Do you know what that is? I just found out what that is. Just found out what that is like last week. Cock sock is. I know. I don't get out very much. I'm not.
That's rough.
Yeah. Well, it's rough. I was like a whole sock dedicated to your member, like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing.
I just think of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm pretty sure that they did a show once all in cock socks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You may or may not want to actually look that up. I'm just fair warning.
YouTube?
Yeah. Probably.
I don't know. If I did, I would probably think that it sounds like all of the rest of their songs. Like,
it's
just a little shade.
Yeah.
Throwing.
Yeah.
They're good. They're good musicians. They just sound the same. So that sexuality is not something that you would say is wrong per se.
No, it's not. It's not wrong. You know, if a female fighter wanted to use her sexuality to draw in viewers, more power to you. Now, same thing for a guy.
Yeah. Now let me go the other side. Like, so what if, you know, a woman uses, and I'm just saying women because we're talking about women fighters, but a woman uses her sexuality, and then all of a sudden, you know, guys, the reaction that you're going to get, some of them are going to be all about it, and then some of them are going to be like, that's fucked up. That's like, you know, women get called sluts and whores for wearing a dress that may be showing a little more skin, you know?
Yeah.
It's unfair, you know? But what would you say to, I guess, to those critics, you know, of that type of exposure?
So like people that think that it's wrong for a woman to,
Yeah.
okay. Again, like I just feel like it's the woman's choice. It kind of, okay. So it kind of goes back to I saw this, I think it was a Gracie breakdown commercial that I just saw yesterday. And it was, two women that were walking down the street in heels and like, a tight short dress, and in the background you hear all of these people saying, oh, she was asking for it, she was wearing heels, why was she wearing that tight dress, she was looking for it. And then it kind of flashes forward to them being assaulted and because it was a Gracie breakdown thing, it was them fighting back. But it's kind of like, you would never tell a woman who was, or I mean people do, but I think it's wrong to tell a woman that she was asking to be raped or assaulted because of what she was wearing. Like nobody wants that to happen to them, and you're violating a person,
Right?
And it has nothing to do with what they were wearing. What it is somebody doing something terrible to another person, and there's no excuse for that. So succinctly, that's what I have to say to the critics.
Right. All right. So now you're doing fitness stuff. You're staying in shape, and I wanted to talk about lead into another subject that's kind of been on the darker trail, if you will, but also really important, and because there's other people that could go through this, and not everybody brings these things to light. So I know I'm really thankful that you're doing it. But I wanted to talk about something that you've struggled with. All right. Do you want to introduce it, or would you like for me to introduce it? Because I will.
No, it's all good. So in the past and really recently, I've had a relapse with an eating disorder, and I have been both terrified and excited to talk about it, because I think that there's a lot of cloudiness around this subject, and I think that being able to do a small part in kind of shedding some light on what it means to have an eating disorder and the complexities with that, like I'm excited to kind of maybe tell some people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. When you brought it to my attention a while back, and you told me in confidence, and obviously I'm not going to tell anybody, until now, or tell everybody.
Now
like
everyone
knows. Yay! But I think that it's a really, number one, it's really like courageous to have this big thing. You know what I mean? And I would say that about anybody that's harboring some dark secret, people that have been molested, people that have just gone through something traumatic where it's taboo to talk about. And so when you said this to me, and I had the idea of doing this podcast, I definitely was like, whoa, let's talk about that. So let's just do that right now, and give me kind of the roundabout way of how you came to understand that this was something that you were dealing with.
So I was first diagnosed when I was 15 or 16. That was when I was officially diagnosed. But this is something that I had been dealing with for a long time.
Did you know that you were like, this is a thing?
At that point I did, because it had gotten pretty bad at that point.
Tell me a little bit about that. What were the behaviors that were happening?
Yeah, so the one thing that I want to say to start off with is that eating disorders are kind of like shapeshifters. So, you may start off kind of squarely in the category of one type of eating disorder, and then it kind of changes.
Anorexia, bulimia.
And then it kind of changes and evolves over time. So for me, it had started out with just restricting what I was eating, so anorexia. And that went on for about a year.
Well, if you can differentiate, what's the difference between cleaning up your diet and being like, watching your intake?
Yeah.
Or, where it goes into this illness?
So it's a fine line. And that's one thing that is kind of heartbreaking to me, is that I see so many women, and I work in a field. Industry. Yeah. I work in a field that's very female dominated, and I hear so many of the things that my coworkers say, and it's not that I think that any of them have an eating disorder.
Sure.
I don't, but the way that they have been taught to think about food is disordered. And so there's a difference there. You know, I think, and this is kind of what they say with like substance abuse and because I'm pretty sure that eating disorders are categorized as an addiction problem.
I think it's so I looked this up.
You did your research.
The National Institute of Mental Health defines it as a actual illness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it does have some like addictive qualities to it,
right.
I think, where, you know, the fine line between, you know, having a problem with it and it just, you know, being dieting, if it starts to invade your life in a negative way in your day-to-day life. So if you find yourself constantly thinking about food, if it's negatively impacting your relationships, if your health is being affected by it, that's when it's a problem.
Okay. So at this early age, you were partaking in what that was telling you there could be something here.
So it started out with me just monitoring what I was eating.
Right.
When it progressed to me, you know, sitting in class and, you know, adding and re-adding up the calories that I'd eaten for the day and planning out what I was, you know, how I was going to skirt around having to eat dinner, that's when I started to be like, this maybe is not normal.
So it was not just changing your diet or just like doing it for like fitness reason. It was just more like,
no, it kind of starts, it kind of starts out as that.
Okay.
And that's the thing that was so sneaky about this most recent relapse, because I had been, you know, pretty much in recovery for about 7 years. So a long time.
right.
And with this most recent relapse, I had been seeing a therapist for, you know, anxiety issues. So something that wasn't really related to this. And I had lost a little bit of weight at that point, but I didn't really think anything of it.
Right.
I thought it was fine, but my therapist knew kind of my history at that point, and she was like, you need to go and see somebody now. And I remember at the time kind of thinking like, she's jumping the gun, like,
Sure.
This is not an issue, but it's just so sneaky because that fine line between dieting and disordered eating is so fine.
And also, like when you came in, like you're relatively in decent shape. You're in good shape. However, like you started doing this pretty hardcore, competing, and then all of a sudden, like your body starts to look different, and then you started to have a lot of people. You know, I would witness that are starting to compliment you, like, oh, you look great. You know, and then also the standard of what society has is beautiful for women is, you know, very thin. You know. Curves, however, and so I'm sure that also adds.
It feeds into it for sure. It feeds into it, and you know, I even when I was at my sickest, I had clients coming up to me telling me, you know, I had some that would compliment me and say, "Oh, you look so great," but it was usually prefaced by like, "What are you doing?" And then they would kind of backtrack and be like, "Oh, but you look great."
Was it kind of like basically they wanted to do the same thing? They wanted the results that you.
Some, but most of the comments that I got from clients like were really pretty heartless. Like I had one woman come in and tell me that I needed to eat bonbons, and it's like at the time it's like I wanted to tell her like, what you don't realize is that like I'm really struggling and like going to eat a bonbon is just not going to happen.
Right.
And at the same time, like I don't see what she sees. You know, she sees somebody that's sick. I don't see that. And
so on the more expansive of that, what did you see? When you shower or whatever, you get in front of the mirror and you take your clothes off. What were you seeing? Were you happy with the results? Were you like, "Ooh, there's something, you know, good here, bad here"? So
it's hard. And this is something that I'm still kind of coming to grips with, is that, you know, body dysmorphia is, it plays a big role in eating disorders. And, you know, for the longest time, like my husband would tell me like, you don't look well. And sometimes I would see glimpses of that. Like when I would be at work and I would kind of catch a glimpse of my face in the mirror, I could see like, okay, you don't look well. But then at the same time, like, I didn't want to gain weight.
Right.
You know, and the big thing with me is that it makes me feel accomplished. So it's not even really about the weight. It's a sense of accomplishment. Like, if I can't control anything else in my life, if I feel like I can't do anything else right, then at least I can watch the number on the scale dip lower.
Right.
And I can, you know, abstain from these foods, and I can feel a sense of accomplishment from that.
So what are like the struggles that you've had having to deal with this? Mm-hmm. Like, what are some of the harder things that you've had to go through because you have, you know, dealt with this illness?
Mm-hmm. I mean, gaining the weight back was really hard.
Like heartbreaking, or just like hard on your body?
Both. Because there's a lot of like medical issues that happen once you start the refeeding process. You have to be under a doctor's care. Really, my team wanted me to go inpatient, but I refused because I can't stop working.
Yeah. Like, that shit's expensive because I'm not in Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't afford that shit.
Because I can't stop working.
That's right.
So having to work a full-time job and deal with essentially trying like not to die was very hard.
Well, I'm glad that you pulled through for not dying. But
that's
you know, with the you know, with just the way the modern life is set up, you know, we all have things that we're dealing with as far as, like, what I mean is like, you have your job, you have your relationship, you're trying to go and have your social life, have your gym life, and then on top of juggling all those things, a lot of times, this is why I wanted you on the podcast, but we have these bigger issues that kind of umbrella over everything, and we shove it down because, you know, it's embarrassing in some ways to talk about the things that are, like, real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you were, you know, and I'm just going to make a, like, crude example, but, like, if you were having troubles, like, using the restroom, you know, that's not something you're going to be like, oh, I need help.
Yeah.
Like, I really need help, because, you know, people are always going to have, like, the snarky comment, or it's just, they make light of things, and maybe not trying to be malicious, but you know, it's something that, if you're already struggling with self-esteem issues having to do with the body, having somebody say something about it is just going to contribute.
Yeah. And there were definitely a lot of comments in everywhere that I was going in life, and not like, I understand that people don't mean bad by the comments. Like, I had a client tell me that my face had gotten fatter, but I have to kind of like reframe that and understand that she means that in a positive way. Right. She means just, like, I look healthier.
She's just an asshole.
Yeah, she maybe didn't word it right.
she just doesn't know how to fucking talk right to people.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just hard for me to, like, gain the weight that I know that I need to gain in order to be healthy. Right. When I know so many people had complimented my underweight body. But at a certain point, I have to do the things that are right for myself, for my relationships, and for my happiness and healthiness, and disregard kind of the vanity aspect of it.
That's a good point. You looked great on the outside, but how did you feel on the inside?
Awful.
Did you feel awful?
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit about that, like what you were experiencing.
So the last month before I got together with a nutritionist and got on a meal plan, I was eating like hardly anything, and my mind was constantly preoccupied with what I was or was not going to eat, how I could go a little bit longer without eating. I remember my legs just felt like lead. So, like, from the moment that I woke up in the morning, like, walking into work was physically exhausting. Making it through the day was just, like, all that I had in me. And I wasn't able to train at all. And that made me really sad. You know, I wanted to be at the gym, but I just, there were a couple of times where I got dressed and drove to the gym, and I just couldn't get myself to get out of the car, and I would just drive back home.
It's the things that you're asking your body to do, like, that's actually really hard. Like, jiu-jitsu's hard. Yeah. You know, and especially the way that some people approach it, you know. Yeah. So to basically have a hard time walking in to to anywhere, to your job early in the morning, and then to
Yeah.
work all day, and then to ask your body to do this extraordinary thing,
Yeah.
you know, without its proper nutrients is going to be
Not
very,
really
very
possible. Yeah. So, for like the last month, I would pretty much just go to work and then come home and lay down and just try to like waste the hours, just trying like not to eat. So it was not a happy time.
So trying not to eat when you were supposed to be eating.
Yeah.
Or this is before you got the help.
Yeah, this was before the help.
And so that went on. And in this latest relapse, I suppose you want to call it, how long did this go on for? Before, number one, you actually had to tell somebody. Like, you know, how long were you dealing with it before you're like, okay, I need help?
Well, I never really went up to somebody and was like, "Hey, I need help." It was like
That sounds
everyone,
ideal, right?
Yeah. No, it was more so people coming up to me and being
Right.
like, "Hey, you need help."
Was it just like not counting the shitty people that sometimes say things, but was it people that were close to you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was really when Micah, my husband, noticed that I was like, okay, I can't do this to the people that I care about.
And he knew your history.
Yeah, but he had never really, by the time that we had started dating, I was already at least physically recovered. You know, there's even throughout the last several years of being in recovery, like there's always kind of the lasting like mental hiccups that are there. But he had never really been with me when I was like deep in the eating disorder. So this was all kind of new to him too. And he's been super supportive and like gone above and beyond with it. But it was really when he noticed that I was like, okay, I've got to like get serious about this.
I'm gonna tell you.
No, that's good.
It
That's
makes a
good.
difference. All right. So, you know, did you ever have to, you know, talk to your parents about this? So
No.
as an adult?
Yeah. And so.
Or has this been kind of on the secretive side, if you will?
It has definitely been on the secretive side. And I've gone back and forth. You know, pretty much everyone has told me that I need to tell them, but it's just really hard for me to tell them. It's almost like easier to tell strangers about it than it is to tell my parents.
You are going to be telling, and they may find out through this or whatever. So if you had to say anything to them, you know, what would it be?
Now,
obviously, I'm asking you to send a message.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Well, you know,
platform.
if they found out about it, I would be fine. And I'm like generally pretty open with my parents. It's not like I don't want to tell them because I'm ashamed.
Sure.
It's more so I don't want to tell them because I don't want them to worry.
Right.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, but also, you know, like this is kind of the thing we were talking about like not airing it to protect others sometimes is detrimental to yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's lessons to be learned here.
And that was part of the motivation to come on here because, you know, I think that some people have noticed like the weight changes recently, and then like instead of having to have all of these individual conversations that are kind of hard, like maybe this is easier just to come on out with it.
Yeah, just come and address it. And I know that you know, Micah had mentioned maybe making like a Facebook post or something that kind of said, but that's also tricky as well.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't reach a lot. I mean, it can reach people, but you know, also text can be misinterpreted in a different way. And
exactly.
You know,
I just felt like I couldn't say the right things in that short of a space.
Right.
I couldn't really elaborate enough on a social media platform to really get my point across.
Yeah, you know, I'm very, very thankful that you were open to coming on, you know, because thus far, you know, it's been pretty much stories and pretty humorous, you know, and I knew that going into this, like starting it, I knew it was going to be, we're going to touch on a deeper subject. And, you know, also I wanted to stay true to the, I guess the way that this has been presented. So I thought this was probably going to be a really challenging one, you know,
yeah.
I mean? But also I think it's just really important,
yeah.
you know, and, you know, obviously you're my friend and I care about you. So I wanted this to be something that can be empowering. I also think because this is something that you're doing, that maybe inadvertently it can kind of put you in a position where, you become a mouthpiece or an advocate for other women or other people, because it's not just a gender specific illness. And so going from there, and I know that you're still, you may not be 100% out of the woods, if you will, but, you know, what would be something that you say, to whoever may be going through this that can relate to this?
Yeah, you know, if you think that you have a problem, or if you think that you know somebody that has a problem, you know, don't be afraid to talk to somebody, because that's kind of the first step, is at least acknowledging that there may or may not be a problem. And even if it's just a friend that you confide in, just somebody, talk about it. Yeah. Because I think just keeping it a secret that's what keeps you sick. I know that that's kind of like a common saying for, like, you know, people in recovery, but yeah, secrets are what keeps you sick. So just, yeah, not being afraid to talk about it. You know, if you know me and you're struggling, like, I will be happy to sit and talk with you about it. And yeah, just don't be afraid to reach out. And there's plenty of places to get help and receive support. Yeah,
and what I want to do really at the end of the show is put up some links, you know.
Yeah.
We can kind of do some research or whatever and put up some links so that if you don't have somebody to talk to, you can find somebody to talk to. You know, there's
Sure.
resources out there, and you know, there with so many things going on in the world, everybody could use a little help in some way.
Definitely.
Shape, or form.
A shoulder to lean on.
Right on. So, all right, that's going to be, I think, what we're going to do. So I wanted to say thank you.
My
A
pleasure.
very, very big heartfelt thank you for coming on the show and talking about something that probably wasn't easy to talk
Yeah.
about.
It's all good. No, it was good. I'm happy to do it.
Would you like to say hello to anybody, give a shout out, do anything? Everybody declines that. I like asking, they're just like, no, I don't fucking have
Just
people
thanks
want to
for
talk
everyone
to.
that's like tuned in for this long. It's awesome. I know it was kind of a heavy podcast, but
Was
I
it
think
though?
Well, I try to keep it lighthearted.
I
I'm a
don't
pretty
know.
lighthearted person.
I thought it was fucking fantastic. I don't feel like down. That's just me.
Good.
All right. So to wrap it up, guys, number one, thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to each and every podcast, giving me feedback, and just doing all that good stuff. I would ask that you subscribe. Go to thelightofdarkness.com, subscribe. There's links over there. Find us on iTunes and leave me a review if you would, because, and I'm going to tell you why, the more reviews, then I can get up to the front page and then blow this fucker up. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to blow this
Let's
fucker
do it.
up. All right. So please leave comments. Follow us on the YouTube page. We have a channel, and go to that. Subscribe, leave me comments. I try to respond to everybody, and yeah, just generally share this, guys, and yeah, that'll be that. I'm on Instagram, The Light of Darkness Podcast, at The Light of Darkness Podcast, a little at symbol. Twitter, DG The Darkness. Do you have any social media presence, or are you like low key?
I'm super low key on that.
Yeah. Introverts, getting introverts
all
on
the
here.
way.
All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for us. Hope to see you guys back here in a couple of weeks, where we have another hopefully interesting as they've been, as they come, podcast for you. And yeah, that'll be that. So again, lightofdarkness.com. I'm Derrick Garza, Lauren Valdez. You guys, thank you very much.
Sweet.
Bye.
That's it.